G'day everyone and welcome once again to MSA News, episode 5 this week. Thank you for joining us. This week we're joined by Adrian Mazzarella. He of course is our head coach of our football or soccer department at Maribyrnong Sports Academy. Look forward to chatting to Adrian. We'll also speak to Sports Director Mark McAllion about the return to school next week and some of the rules I suppose that'll be in place around that. And we're going to head into Ola's Kitchen. Looking forward to doing that as well. All that to come right here on MSA News. All right, catching up with us today on our coaching segment is our football coach or our soccer coach, whichever you want to call him. His name is Adrian Mazzarella. He joins us now. G'day, Adrian.
Hi Tony. Thanks for having me.
What is it, football or soccer?
Well, officially it's now football. But in Australia it's well known as soccer. So either or for me, it doesn't matter.
You played a fair bit of it in your life, even a stint overseas with a club called Croydon Football Club.
Yeah, correct. I obviously grew up with 3 brothers, so it was just part of growing up playing the game. But yeah, eventually played all my juniors in Australia, and then got to a point when I left Australia at about 24. I'd already finished university and was a teacher. So I went overseas to work and then obviously play as well. And yeah, had a little stint over there. But I think at 25, I thought, only playing semi-professionally over there, that I'm not going to make it professionally. And it was quite difficult to continue playing over there. Quite different to Australia in terms of even just getting around and logistics of transport and so on. So I did want to, continue my professional career in terms of teaching and so forth. And I wanted to be able to travel and still playing. I guess, put a lot of restrictions on what you're able to do while you're working overseas and living overseas. So I sort of put football on the back burner and sort of just played more because I love the game and wanted to continue playing, but not to pursue a professional career, and continue to pursue my teaching education career, as well as experiencing living overseas in Europe, traveling, and enjoying that aspect of life as well.
And that love of the game and also your teaching component, 2 perfect qualifications for becoming a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where it really started. My coaching pathway started because I was living in England. I was teaching and then got asked to take the school football team to the, inter-school games. And then thought, well, an opportunity to start doing some coaching. So started my coaching qualifications. And that's when I guess the idea of the fire burning inside, the passion started for coaching, because it was probably on my 2nd level coaching course in England that I started to see the content on the coaching courses and the tactics that was being taught or expected to be taught to the players. And it was something that I'd never experienced here in Australia growing up as a junior. Australia is a very young country in terms of football. And, it's got a lot to learn. So growing up with the coaches that you have here, generally in the junior ranks, you don't get taught a lot about the game. And what you learn really is just through playing yourself. And hopefully you can get to a level in Australia where you're playing, professionally. Then hopefully you've got some good quality coaches there. It's changed now. I'm talking back, when I was young. So yeah, the education in football wasn't there growing up. And when I experienced the coach education overseas in Europe, that really gave me a burning desire to come back to educate myself in football as much as I could, maximise my learning in the time I was spending in Europe, and then be able to come back to Australia. My plan was always to come back and live back here in Australia. So the plan was to come back and be able to share that knowledge and help develop youth players here in Australia. So that was where my passion started for coaching, and specifically with youth coaching, juniors and youth. That's my passion.
There is no more rigid sport, I think, in regards to coaching qualifications than football. Every level of football that you want to achieve as a coach, there's a specific qualification you must reach, whether it be an under-9s coach right through to an international coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And thankfully, Australia is now sort of catching up with that because, like I said, when I was doing my coach education overseas, although I was based in England, I would travel, for weekends and week courses, etc., to Scotland, because Scotland, I only knew this because I had worked, one of my close colleagues was an ex-professional player for the Ukraine, and played at the top level, and he recommended to me to go to Scotland because they had age-appropriate coaching courses. So you could be trained up to coach young children, to coach youth players, or to coach seniors, and that was so age-appropriate coaching, and that was something which wasn't even done in England, and certainly wasn't done here in Australia. So Australia now have started to introduce that as well, the different levels of coaching, and then along with that, you obviously it works in line with the levels that you progress through. So it's a really important part of it.
Not only do our kids at Maribyrnong get the opportunity to learn from you, but you've also had the pleasure of working with some of the best kids in the state over time through some of the Victorian teams. That must be a real pleasure to do that.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? Probably when I got back from overseas and started working in the skill acquisition program and the state team program, I obviously loved it. Loved playing with the best players at that age, at that time. But I don't think I really appreciated it until years later, and it's happening now. Almost 10 years later, where those players that I was coaching, you now see them playing in the A-League. You see them getting contracts overseas in Europe. You see them playing in the young Socceroos, the Joeys or the young Socceroos. And then, that's when the reward really hits. It's rewarding to see that. And that gives me more of a desire to really watch the A-League games and see how these young players are going now that they're in the late teens, early 20s, and to see how they're going professionally. So, it's really enjoyable.
And while you've had that contact with those state league players, it must be even more satisfying to see our local talent at Maribyrnong come through. And we've had some great players come from the school and go on to play A-League and even overseas in the last few years. Yeah,
absolutely. And to be honest, it was probably about over 15 years ago. I was working in England, coaching there, teaching, etc. And I learnt about a school in Melbourne starting up, Maribyrnong College, becoming a sports academy. And, I would do my research and everything that I guess I believed in that was important, a holistic sort of approach to youth development, Maribyrnong seemed to be creating. And from that point, that many years ago, I said to myself, I want to be working in that environment and working with that program and working with kids coming into that program. So it's really exciting, and it's an honour really to be able to work with these young kids coming through. The program has gone from leaps and bounds from when it started. And, the intake of year 7s coming in each year, the level just gets higher and higher, and more difficult to be able to identify the players that come into the program. But it's rewarding to see them develop from year 7 to year 12, both technically, their game understanding, as well as them as a person, learning, I guess, in a way that sometimes it's not just about the sport. You have to be a rounded athlete and person. And I guess the program really helps guide them in that direction. And that's what I love about it. They get the football and they get everything else about it as well. So, it's, again, really rewarding to see the players coming in and see them move out into the real world.
A final one for you, Adrian. There's obviously a massive difference between coaching adults and coaching juniors. The juniors, you're really teaching the game. The adults, you're sort of more honing in on what they already know. Take us through your philosophy of junior coaching and how you look after the kids at Maribyrnong.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. It's certainly developed over the many years. If we're starting at, I won't go into pre-year 7 because we look at year 7, but coming into year 7, really they're at the point where they're still developing. There's still a massive window of opportunity to develop technically, but so we really hone in on ensuring that we maximise their technical development at that age, because once you get to 16, 17, absolutely you can still improve technically and it's still a really important part of your development, but that massive window of opportunity to maximise your potential has sort of gone. So we really make sure in the early years we maximise that part, and along with that we integrate the game understanding element. So along with developing their skill and their technical ability, they're learning about the game, they're understanding the game a little bit better, understanding different tactics of how they may want to play and how they may want to play against other teams. And then we go through to the middle years, year 9 and 10, where we're really moving into focusing on the principles of the game. There's a big push in the football world, especially here in Australia, on when you've got a team, you have to have a style of play, you have to have a playing philosophy. And we really see Maribyrnong as a true development centre, where we don't have to worry about organising a team and playing or training to win. It's an education. It's a football education. So we really focus now on developing the principles of the game. So the principles of attack, the principles of defending, so that no matter which team they go and play for or which club they go and play for, they understand the principles of football and they can be applied in different styles of play. So we have a bigger focus on that once we get to the middle years, as well as continuing to develop their technical ability. And then as we move into the senior years, the idea is that we then can start honing in on individual needs more so, because they are getting to the pointy end where they want to start breaking into the first team football, playing seniors. Their position is pretty much determined by then. So it becomes more specific to what they need in order to them to take that step into senior football. So that's a very broad overview of the idea behind the development program at Maribyrnong.
Mate, thank you so much for your time today. Really do appreciate it. We're so lucky to have you on board at Maribyrnong College, and we'll see you back at school soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, Tony. My pleasure.
All right, joining us once again is Mark McAllion, the Sports Director at Maribyrnong Sports Academy. And Mark, it's getting exciting. We're back at school in a couple of days.
Absolutely, Tony. It is exciting. Can't wait to have some people through this place again. So just counting down now to have students back.
So the students are back next Tuesday. What can they expect when they walk through the door in regards to their normal academy work?
So the year 11 and 12's back next week, and then obviously the year 7s to 10 back on the 9th of June. What we're trying to do is put in place as much as possible our normal programs for academy athletes. So that will mean that tech training will be happening in a face-to-face way for the 11s and 12s from next week for most sports, and then obviously for everyone from the 9th of June. ADP will be running. There'll be the normal academy programs as is normally experienced. There'll be some minor changes or some changes with those, obviously with some hand hygiene type things, getting students and staff to wash their hands before and after sessions, hand sanitizer, equipment will be wiped down, those types of things. And there'll be some modification to some sports where, example, tackling in AFL won't be taking place, those types of things. But as much as possible, it will be a normal sports academy experience.
And the gym will be available for ADP classes and the like?
Yeah, so for as ADP is a subject of the school, is a graded subject, that students will be allowed to be in the gym doing their ADP programs, again with some slight modifications on hygiene and maybe group sizes and things like that. But yes, they will be able to complete their ADP programs as they would have previously.
And I think it's also important that you mentioned it before. Next week is only for year 11 and 12s. Tech training will start for the year 7 to 10s 2 weeks later on June the 9th.
That's right, yeah. So the remote program will continue for the year 7s to 10s, and the coaches will be in touch with student athletes on what that might mean. There might be, maybe some less sessions because the coaches will also be working with 11s and 12s face-to-face. Those sort of things will vary from sport to sport, but basically a remote program will continue for the year 7s to 10s, and then everyone on deck from the 9th of June, and we're back into it, which will be great.
Look forward to seeing you next week, albeit 1.5 metres apart.
Absolutely. Look after yourself. Stay safe. Thanks, Tony.
Everyone, thanks for joining me again in Ola's Kitchen. So today we're going to talk about how you can start preparing yourself for tournaments. So when you're going to have multiple matches or games in a day, it's really important that you go prepared. We need to make sure we're fueling ourselves well. We can't rely on competition venues, unfortunately. Very often their food's got a lot of fat in it. If we're, tempted by hot chips or pies or sausage rolls, it's not going to sit very well. It's likely that you're going to feel quite heavy in competition. So what I thought I'd show you today is some of the some snack ideas, some things that you can be taking. And if you're going to have several matches in a day, you're probably going to need 4 or 5 different carbohydrate snacks. So I've got a few options to show you today. Fruit is perfect. So any kind of fruit, might be grapes, you might have some mandarins, some bananas, any kind of muesli bar that's going to give you a little bit of carbohydrate for some fuel. I've got some dried mango here, but any kind of dried fruit. I've got some rice crackers. So they're all great carbohydrate options. So these are some little snacks that you can grab as soon as you're finished maybe one race or event. You can have a little top-up snack and refuel your muscles for the next event. Okay, so a few examples there. You probably also need to take a lunch. So I've just got a grainy roll here. I've put in some egg and some spinach into that. You can add whatever you like, or you can have maybe a thermos that you take with you, and something like this can store or keep some rice or a pasta dish nice and hot for you. But we're reaching for these carbohydrate foods because that's constantly going to top up your fuel stores throughout the day and really keep your brain firing too. So towards the end of the day, you might choose to take a protein snack with you. So any kind of Greek yogurt or a milky drink, you might need to freeze that or keep it in a cooler bag, maybe with an ice block as well. And then the only other thing you might need is your drink bottle, perhaps maybe some electrolytes if you need electrolytes. So you might have a second drink bottle with you, but once you've got your drink bottle, your snacks sorted, and a packed lunch, you're ready to go. Good luck in your competition, in your tournaments.
Before we finish off with our very popular student challenge session, just an announcement. Congratulations to the following students who have made the pre-youth junior Australian volleyball squad. Well done to you guys, and also these students who have made the youth and junior volleyball Australian squads. Congratulations to all of you, and we wish you all the best in making those final teams. Okay, here it is, the moment you've been waiting for. Our student challenges We'll catch you again next week with a very special edition of MSA News.